Icy Hot, Jurgens, Kazam, Shaq Fu, beautiful, iconic, all-star, MVP. These are all things that can describe Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was born March 6, 1972, in Newark, New Jersey. He's a descendant of high school basketball players Lucille O'Neal and Joe Tony. Shaq was an all-star NBA player, and before that, he actually played for LSU for 3 years, where he ended up dropping out of college and went to go pursue the NBA draft. So a little bit after that, he actually ended up going back to college to fulfill a promise he made to his mom, where he'd go back. So he got his bachelor's in general studies. Shaq has an extraordinary amount of accomplishments tucked under his belt. I think he's just a professional when it comes to living life to its fullest, and he can do so in such a respectful manner, and that's why I look up to him a lot. So from rapping to acting to being one of the greatest to ever step foot on the court, he is someone that showed the world that anything is possible with the right mindset and the right work ethic. He lived and breathed basketball whenever he was on the court, and he set records throughout his era of basketball. He literally went down in history as a legend, one of the greatest centers of all time, and also did so with a comedic fashion. So aside from his comedic way of playing basketball, he also had a comedic way of going about life, where it kind of brought a lot of opportunity within himself and a lot of different career opportunities, like advertisements, investments, and things along those lines. So Shaq's life on the court is something that will always go down in history and won't be forgotten by the sports world. Shaq's skill with the ball is what brought him 4 championship rings, believe it or not. So from 1999 through 2002, he had a three-peat for the NBA championship ring, and he did that with the Los Angeles Lakers. And then a few years later with the Miami Heat in 2005-2006 season, he also got another ring. So he wasn't only statistically one of the greatest, but he was also electrifying to watch. Not to forget that he was a 15-time NBA All-Star, a 3-time Finals MVP, Season MVP, and Rookie of the Year, as well as 2-time all-around NBA scorer. He was someone that was able to bring things down statistically when it came to the game of basketball. Throughout Shaq's career, people noticed that watching him was, you were kind of like watching someone who was doing things a little different with the game of basketball. He definitely had this style that would stick out amongst other players, and people would definitely recognize that. So a quote I want to mention before we go deeper into it is, "Me shooting 40% at the foul line is just God's way of saying that nobody's perfect." Shaq really brought comedy and comedic relief into the game of basketball, which kind of changed the way the game went for people watching it and people playing it. People definitely noticed, and his humorous way of playing just kept people watching, and people loved to witness it. Not only did it change the game of basketball, but it also birthed an era of a generation of athletes that could go towards a competitive thing in such a brighter manner with a brighter attitude. So he was definitely able to make a really big impact when it came to the game of basketball. Even with his comedic mindset and play style, it wasn't to forget how crazy it was to watch Shaq make plays on the court. Even though he was very humorous and fun to watch, it didn't take away from the electricity that he brought to the court. From playing with legends like Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade, he was able to show the world how electric he could really be with them, and show them how much synergy he can bring when he's playing with his teammates. Another quote I want to mention that stood out to me was, "Excellence is not singular, but a habit. You are what you repeatedly do." There is never a dull moment on the court when it comes to Shaq playing. He utilizes all of his time whenever he's on the court and makes the best of it. And he was actually known for spending a lot of minutes in game when it came to playing. He actually ended up averaging a double-double throughout his regular season as well as his postseason, which is extremely incredible. A side of Shaq that not a lot of us get to see is his activity off the court, as well as his strict and very straightforward mindset towards life in general. Shaq is a very known face in not only the acting industry, but the rap industry too, believe it or not. So Shaq, along the lines of his career, a little bit farther back, released 8 rap albums, 4 of them being studio albums. He released also 9 singles and made a pretty good, image for himself in the rap field. So it kind of goes to show you he probably could have pursued that as a career if he really wanted to, but he ended up choosing maybe a little wiser towards the sports field. Along that path, he ran into a few big opportunities, like advertisements and investments and sponsorships. Starring in a movie like Kazam in 1996 is really what kickstarted that into things that we see, like I mentioned earlier, Icy Hot and Jergens, even to more recent ones like Papa John's and Lysol, being, of course, the face and sponsorship of those companies. With all this being said, let's not forget to mention how important Shaq emphasized his seriousness towards specific things about life. He's a very strict mindseted person along the lines of, whatever you work towards, you will achieve in your life, and however serious you take things is, how things will come back. He made sure to put emphasis on those ways of thinking towards his kids, and didn't fail to do so when making sure that they grew up the same way he did. Shaq also recently was on a show called Hot Ones, where they really interviewed him and went deeper into everything we're talking about now. He talked about how important it is to show respect to another human being, and how hatred can go down if we just show mutual respect for not only humans, but for authority and just for people in general, doing the right thing and making sure to do your part. In conclusion, I think whether it's from off the court, looking at his acting skills, or on the court, checking out how sick he is, he was really someone that was unique to watch. I think being able to blow the charts is what kickstarted his career towards everything, and it really just opened up the doors for everything that he was able to do in his career. Although my idolization for Shaq can kind of come off as a joke to a lot of people that I know, I genuinely really respect him because of the way that he thinks and the way that he, thinks about life and the way that he goes about things. And I think whether it's from watching his breakdown during halftime show, or just witnessing him go crazy on the court, or even his crazy acting, I think everyone needs a little bit of Shaquille in their lives.